What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here to bring you another strong episode of the Business of Strength, where you can hear the interviews, tips, and tools to turn your passion for strength into a profitable business you will love. Do not forget our annual Strongest Year Gym Business Retreat is September 28th and 29th in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona at the Canopy Hotel. It's going to be amazing. Jam-packed 2 days of learning, workshops, hot seats, building, breakdowns, you name it, guest speakers, luncheons, dinners, pool party. We're going to do it all. We're going to have a ton of fun. We're going to take you on a journey through the world of strength and business, and we're going to have an awesome time doing it. You're going to get to network with some high performing gym owners. We're going to have some awesome sponsors for the event, and you definitely don't want to miss this. Arizona's a beautiful, Scottsdale is a beautiful town. The Canopy Hotel is amazing, and this would be a great way to reset and regroup for the fourth quarter and get your gym set up and primed for a huge year in 2024. So you can go to the businessofstrength.com, go to businessofstrength.com and check us out there, or you can at Business of Strength on Instagram and shoot us a DM if you want more information about the retreat. In this episode, I'm talking to my man, Kyle Newell. Kyle is a thought leader in the world of personal development, training, and nutrition. He owns 3 successful gyms, Newell Strength, and he has created an amazing personal brand, the Panda-Man, where he is helping men and women improve their lives, improve their mindset, improve their nutrition and health through his unique approach to training and nutrition. He's created a fasting program called the Panda Diet. It's really, really great. It's simple, it's effective, and we talk about his rules for fasting, how he's managing both running the gym business and building a fast growing personal brand. He's gone from a few thousand followers to over 100,000 followers on just about every platform out there in only a few short months, all organic, all done the right way. How he's doing that. We'll talk a little bit about how he's doing that. We'll talk about his philosophy on mindset and how training the mind and the body leads to, improvements in every other aspect of your life. A common theme that you see a lot in fitness, but he's actually doing it and putting it into practice. And Kyle's just an awesome, awesome guy whose intentions are in the right spot. He really wants to help people, and he's doing it really well. So check Kyle out. You can go to all his information at Panda-Man official on IG and at Newell Strength on IG, and give this guy a listen. You're going to love it. And as much as I do, he's helped a lot of people. He's helped me personally with my nutrition, and you do not want to miss this episode. So let's get dialed in. Coach Joe, this is the Business of Strength. Take it away. I'm here with my man, Kyle Newell, and we're pumped to have you on the podcast. Thanks for taking some time on a busy, busy Monday to spend some time with us, Kyle. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, man. Happy to be here. Been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Yeah, we've been trying to put this together for a few weeks now. Kyle's been on a journey. You're always on a journey, though.
Always.
You're always on a journey towards something, to give everybody a little bit of background on Kyle. I met Kyle through a mutual mastermind. Give Vince a pump. Vince Gabriel's mastermind. Vince does a great job with his mastermind, and I met Kyle, and Kyle just always has a kind of a presence about him. He's always been super into nutrition and training and running his business and leading himself. We just got to chatting a bunch through the mastermind, and I was really intrigued with some of the stuff he was doing with his diet work, and that just kind of led us down a rabbit hole to kind of connecting a little bit more. He came up to the gym a few times. We went down to his gym, and we've built a nice friendship, and I thought he'd be a great fit for the podcast for all the business owners and entrepreneurs out there. I think, Kyle, you could attest to this. A lot of gym owners have a tough time balancing the want to be this great guru coach, to be like, the Joe DeFranco, the Eric Cressy, the Jay Ferrugia, whatever it might be, and run a brick and mortar gym. And those two things are kind of mutually exclusive. They're very different from each other. And you're living that right now. So I'd love to kind of hear your take on going from, the brick and mortar gym owner, leader, owner, operator to kind of moving into the Panda-Man, your own personal brand, and what it's been like kind of on this journey?
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe. And I think a lot of guys in our industry in the strength field do have that vision, at least when they start out, of being that guru, being that brand. But it's something I knew I wanted to do for a long time. But as you know, with the gyms, I mean, they're a grind, they're a full-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been wanting to do the branding stuff for some years now. I've studied it, and I think it just naturally fits my personality. But the timing with the gyms wasn't right because I had to invest so much time into the gyms. So this year, me and my wife said, "All right, let's make this the year that you go for it, with the personal brand." And it was really just making sure I had the right people in place at the gym. So we have the two gyms and having the right leadership at those gyms, because otherwise I'd have to put too much time into them and I wouldn't be able to do the branding stuff, because the branding stuff is full time. I mean, you're constantly creating content. You got to shoot your film, which that's the easy part to me. But the outreach is the DMs,
Mm-hmm.
really just trying to be active. It's not something that naturally I like to do. I don't like to be on my
Right.
phone. So I've had to balance that, right? But you say, okay, if I want to build this, you have to do this, but you have to make sure that the gym is secure over here. The gym has been my bread and butter for the gyms for over a decade. So they still supply me and my family income at this stage. Eventually,
Right.
the personal brand will be at the point where I don't need that as far as income. But it's definitely a balancing act, and I would, if you're going to both at the same time, you got to be very, very disciplined with your time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that people have is that I'm watching you as a friend, and we've had lots of conversations about the work going into creating the Panda-Man brand and the coaching. And just for people listening, can you tell people a little bit about what the Panda-Man brand is and exactly what you're selling and what you're doing with that brand, so they have a context there?
Sure. So the Panda, a little background on the Panda, why I picked the Panda. Ron Artest, I was a fan of his when he was playing basketball. I love,
Badass.
yeah, I love it, man. I love the way he's tough.
Yeah.
It's
Kick
a
the
great,
shit out of you if you talk shit on the sidelines too.
he came up into the
Punch you in
crowd,
the
yeah.
face. Yeah.
Alex in the palace.
Choking out fans and shit.
Yeah, he was old school, man. And
Yeah.
I love that style. And he had come out, he changed his name for a little bit to like the Panda's Friend or something. This is going back like 10
Mhm.
years. So I bought one of his hats and I started researching the panda, the animal. I saw this kind of reminds me of myself in that people view it as like this cuddly, compassionate creature, but it's also can be very fierce. So I like that duality, having the
Mhm.
inner competitor, but it doesn't mean you have to be nasty to people. So I like that right away. I like the black and white aspect of it, which was a big part of what I coach on is decision. It's black or white. There's no gray area. You're going to burn up so much mental energy if you're in the gray. So we decide whether we're fasting or whatever it is. So it's really a philosophy around eating, but then that boils over to everything else, right? Bringing mindfulness to everyday life, to your training. And with my methodology, I basically call it fast, beast, and feast. So that's like the physical part, right? So we fast, we train hard, we feast when we feast. And then the mind mapping. So I combine all that into the Panda-Man, and it's really life coaching.
Mhm.
That's my primary thing that I'm doing. I train people, I put people's programs together,
Yep.
get them on fasting, but it's more about the mindset and getting the inner dialogue under control, which is another core tenet of the Panda-Man, really, is the inner dialogue, trying to master that inner conversation that's going on.
I think everybody could use a little bit of help there. I don't know a human on earth who can't who couldn't use a mentor to help them sift through their own, bullshit. I've had many mentors over the years, young and old. You look back, some of the coaches that you had when you were a kid, great coaches. Most great coaches were people that called you out on your bullshit and said, "No, man, that's just the dumbest shit I ever heard. Like, get out there and work." Like you'd come to the sideline complaining about like I can't get a move on this guy. He's too much. He's too fast. Bro. Get out there and do and they have to redirect your focus. From a sports perspective. And I've had plenty of business coaches who are like, "Oh, I'm afraid to raise prices. I'm going to lose all my customers," and that's just bullshit. That's head trash. You gotta run a business that's suitable for you. So I think it's great. And and now with this Panda-Man, you're mostly focused on men, or is it men and women?
I have men and women. There's more men, there's more men, and it just naturally suited, right, to guys our age. It's easier for me to talk to them. But I do get
Mhm.
that question a lot from women. Do you work with women? And I do totally, but who I speak to more in my content is the men for sure.
Sure, sure. Now, now that you're and again to go back to what we were talking about before, before you were creating the Panda-Man, I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into that personal branding. I happen to be, go down to Kyle's gym, a couple months ago now. Me and my business partner Dan did a little in service for him and his team, and I show up and he's out in the parking lot filming, content, right? And we get there. I said, Joe, give me the breakdown, man. Like, what's it like? And it's X amount of videos a day, it's X amount of stories, it's long format, YouTube videos, podcast, short, and it's like, he lays out this plan. And I'm like, holy crap, that sounds exhausting. Right. And I think that's where a lot of gym owners just don't realize, like, once you become a content creator, you have to do just that. You have to create content constantly. And like when you see these TikTok celebrities and people who've gotten all this fame, they've like Mr. Beast and things like that. Well, it's every day, all day. It's constant content creation. And I think that's where a lot of gym owners fail. It can become a shiny object thing, and it distracts them. They maybe, like you said, the gym isn't set up to where it needs to be. They don't have the leadership and the processes and the systems in place. They take their eyes off the prize a little bit, and then things start to slide, down. And that's when, now I got two things that I'm trying to manage instead of one, and I'm not doing either one of them great. And you don't become the guru, and your gym goes out of business, and that's kind of like the worst case scenario for everybody.
And it is, and people, if they want to go down that road with the branding, you got to think of why are you doing it. Like I have
Right.
no desire to be famous or anything like that. That stuff doesn't. It's still my wife, she always calls me out on it. Yeah, she sees it. My brother, I have three brothers.
Mhm.
They've seen it for a while, and I'm kind of oblivious to that. When people uh recognize me or something like that, right? And it's still in my mind, I'm a beginner, and you kind of have that mindset. But I know it's a tool I need to use to reach as many people as I want to reach.
Yeah.
My vision really with the Panda-Man is to have a 1 million-man panda militia, meaning people that have gone through my programs. They know my philosophy. They live the philosophy. It's not mine. It's just stuff that's been ancient wisdom. It's stuff from the Bible. It's stuff that I just share with people. But I know that this is how I have to do it, to reach them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way that you reach people nowadays. There is no, it's not like the old days. Now our reach and impact is so much, broader than it used to be, and you have a real opportunity to help people. So let's dive in a little bit. Tell people, a little, obviously what intrigued me. So before, you can't tell, you might not be able to tell from the video when people see the video on YouTube or whatever, Kyle's swag is next level. Usually it's next level, like off the chain. Like, he walks into a room and he's easily the most swagged out guy in the room almost always. Right. So that's first. So, we don't have the red shades on today. We don't have the chains, the gold chains and the jersey on you like we usually do. And, so he's keeping it low key for everybody today on the podcast. But so, the first thing is you're the type of guy that when you tell me I'm going to create my own personal brand, I'm like, you already have a personal brand because your brand sticks out like a sore thumb. So, and you've always been super willing to coach people, talk to people, help people. I always see you at the masterminds or any place I've ever been with you, just like willing to share your knowledge and experiences with people. Um, Tell us a little bit about, what differentiates your philosophy on training, nutrition, mindset from, let's say, everything else that's out there. How are you really guiding people, and what are some of the differences in the Panda philosophy?
Yeah, sure. Well, the main thing is the fasting, right? That's something I came upon in 2014 when I was getting ready for my last two bodybuilding shows. And at the time, I had heard of fasting, but I thought everything that any bodybuilder would think, oh, I'm going to lose muscle, I can't do this, metabolism's going to slow down. But for some reason, when I was 8 weeks, out from that show, and I was reading some research on it, I said it just clicked, and I started it. And at that time, it was like a 16-hour fast, so nothing
Hmm.
crazy. It
Hmm.
wasn't people, you know,
Just more like an intermittent fasting.
correct. Yeah, correct. And it got much easier my preparation though from that. Everything was tracked, so I had some really good data as far as how many calories and but it got easier just going from 4 meals a day to 2 meals a day, how I felt, my energy, all that. So I knew I was onto something. 2019, after doing that for 5 years, sometimes I would do 1 meal a day. That would be like extreme at that point. I dove into the longer form fasting. And I said, let's see what happens here. If you go 2 days, if you go 3 days without eating and you keep training. And at the time when I started that, because my wife would always say to me, and this frustrated me too. She said, I don't understand. You eat well, you train all the time, but you don't, and she didn't mean in a bad way, but she's like, you don't look like the effort you're putting in, you don't look like that. And I felt it too. Unless I was getting ready for a bodybuilding contest, I would have to kill myself to get lean. And once I started doing the longer fasting, I was 250 that summer. So 4 summers ago.
250, you said 250.
16% body fat. So not like
No, that's
fat.
a big son of a bitch, though. You're a big
Yeah,
dude, and you're a big guy
big.
anyway. But 250 is a big man.
Yeah, I was big, and I didn't feel right. Like my shirts were too tight around my neck.
But beefy, but bulky. Yeah,
Bulky, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I started doing 48s, and that whole first summer, after I did a couple 48s, I pretty much did a 72-hour fast every week. And I said, let me see, the hell. And I went all the way down to 6% and about 225.
Wow.
Pretty much exactly. I was 230 the other day, but 5 and change in body fat, but it's pretty much exactly where I'm at now. So the maintenance, and it's not a diet, right? I've been doing this 4 years. So it's such a way to live that I love to eat. So I fast and then I feast when I eat. And I don't have to count my calories. I'm not doing any of that nonsense. And the main thing of it is really the insulin that we're controlling, right? Carl
Sure.
Powell teaching this years ago when I would go to his seminars in really hammering home the insulin. So you have the physical aspect of the Panda, but more importantly, once you really get into it, it's what it does to your mind, right? Like I don't feel like doing a 48-hour fast by every week, but I miss it. Like last week was one of the rare weeks I didn't do one because of 4th of July. We were down at some friend's house, but I miss it. It kind of throws me off because it's tough. It's that hormesis, that low-level stress. And you really have to, especially if you get into longer ones beyond the 48, you got to master that inner dialogue we were talking. It's about the self-mastery, the fasting. It's a principle. And that's the key. I tell people, your body's going to change. But once you get that and you start realizing, and every time I do it, I get to practice more about building up my inner dialogue.
Kyle's always, I mean, you're always super mindful. And I mean, we've had lots of discussions about, a lot of things. Philosophy. After a couple bourbons one day, I think we solved about 15 world crises. But but the truth of it is that everything in business, everything in relationship success, and everything in your personal health really comes down to controlling your habits, which when you're talking about controlling your habits, you're controlling your mindset towards those habits. So people set up like boundaries with themselves of like, I have to do this, or this is the norm, or like, you like, here's perfect example. I'm talking to some friends this week about like, me and my wife have kind of gone out of our way to just get rid of all the snacks from our house, right? We saw a pattern. We were falling into the trap like everybody else, where it was just like our kid was asking for snacks all the time. And even though we're super healthy, we would give him like, the healthiest snacks we can get, but they're still crap. It's garbage, right? So now I just removed everything, from my house, and I made a snack drawer with all sorts of healthy stuff in there. I got nuts and cheese and little salamis and all the like organic stuff for him and fruits, and whatever he can eat, whatever he wants. Eat whenever you want to, man. It's all healthy stuff in the snack bar. But if you want ice cream or chocolate or you want candy, we got to go out for it, right? And so that automatically just creates a different habit in the house, right? And it's controlling a situation where the mindset of it was like, oh, he's just a kid, he's just little. It's like, all right, well, we're creating a habit where you're gonna eat, where for when he's 15, it's gonna breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack, right? And now your kid's eating every day. If you have chips every day, well, at the end of a week, it's 2 bags of chips. It's a lot of chips, right? And you don't think about it like that. So if I said to you at the end of a year, would you give your kid 52 bags of chips? And nobody would give their kid 52 bags of chips. I said, well, if you give it to them in little bits over the course of a week, that's what you're doing to them. So you give your kid 52 bags of chips this year. And it's like, oh shit, you don't realize it like that. So
I love that. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So again, when you talk about the mindset stuff, that is essentially, what your Panda program is and why you fell into the fasting as much as you have. How do you feel like though on the physical side? There's a lot of how do you beat the meathead, dogma of there's no way that I'm going to be able to maintain my muscle mass. There's no way that, what about the metabolic window? What about all the misconceptions and preconceptions that people have revolved around that type of stuff? I need X amount of calories. What about calories in, calories out? Like, what's your philosophy on some of that stuff?
So it's all stuff I've tried and it was miserable doing, and I looked at myself as my own experiment. I've had a lot of clients obviously go to my program, but when I look at it, I'm the best shape I've ever been in, right? And I feel way younger. Like I did an Army Ranger challenge last weekend. I could recover from that stuff within like 12 hours. Like when we climb Mount Washington, we do that every year. Next day, I'm fine. Where some of these guys are crippled. And it really has to go with what the fasting does as far as reducing inflammation and all that. So with those guys, a lot of them will, kind of, if you want to call them haters, on social media, which I think is a good thing. But I say, but first of all, if you haven't tried it, you can't really speak about it, right? 'Cause I've tried what they've done and I've tried this. So I've developed what I call direct knowledge. And they'll say, well, I said, the studies aren't studying people that are doing it like I'm doing. They're not. There's nobody out there doing it, right? So it's like, this is my own experiment. And all I can speak on is how I feel in my health, right? So I look at the performance and the health and then the cosmetic, which most people chase the cosmetic first. Like when I was bodybuilder, I want to look this way. And that to me is an outside in approach.
Sure.
Say, okay, I want to focus on my performance and my health. It's more of an inside out approach, right? So that's the approach I take. And I take that too. We don't need to count calories or any of that. We're controlling insulin, right? We're mastering that hormone. We're getting more insulin sensitive. We're creating this anabolic environment, even though people think it isn't, because you're more insulin sensitive, growth hormones up, luteinizing hormones up, glucagons up, all these things optimized. Now, when you train, you further optimize those hormones. And now when we feast, I call it calorie partitioning, where those nutrients and calories go is much more likely to go to the muscle cell. So I really believe this is the way the human body was designed to function. 1 meal a day type of base plan, train hard, work hard, whatever you're doing, and then you feast.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I was hiking with a friend yesterday, and it's miserable. Well, I was about to tell you it's been miserably hot here, but you're not too far from us, so
Yeah.
it's been miserably hot here. It's been 100. It's close to 100 and pure humidity for the last week here. So we were out like 6 a.m. yesterday hiking. We did about a 4-hour run, and soaked with sweat and everything like that. And we were chatting the whole time, and we're talking because I've gotten my buddy Johnny a little bit onto the fasting, and he was doing a 2-day. He was doing a 48-hour fast. He broke his fast this morning. He texted me this morning. He's like, my coffee, my shitty black coffee never tastes so good. I was like, and but like we were saying, it's like it seems inconceivable to me that 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, right, 100,000 years ago, that prehistoric man, you didn't just wake up and you didn't make pancakes and eggs and bacon every morning. You had to go out and kill something. You had to go out and hunt something. You had to go out and harvest things. So you were out. The men and probably the women at that point in time would, they'd leave the village or the cave, early in the morning, and you didn't come home till you killed something. And if you didn't kill something, you didn't eat, and that was it.
Yeah.
Maybe you snacked on some nuts and berries for that night, but otherwise you basically didn't eat, and you had to do it again.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, no, I don't think anybody can really argue that point. And it seems so obvious, right? If they look at a lot of people just don't know history, right? And the history of like breakfast, most important meal of the day. When you break your fast, it's the same word, right? But it's been taken and put into this marketing machine. And breakfast is really relatively new. It's like past 150 years where breakfast has become a thing as we know it. And you got to think of who's telling everybody this as far as you got to eat frequently and you got to do this. Well, it's coming from the universities, right? The studies that are funded by whether it's big pharma and it's big food,
big grain,
all this stuff, right? And I take it to so many levels with that. I'm like, and it's all right. It's all tied in with the government, all this stuff. And I can't think that anybody actually thinks the government wants everybody to be healthy. Right, because much of the system collapses in. Then you're stronger of mind. You don't need to be taken care of, right? You don't have to be on the pharmaceutical drugs, all this stuff. So I'm like, I think it's intentionally put out there to us. And I think people that repeat it, it's not that they're doing it with bad intentions, it's what they've been taught.
Yes.
Right. What's always been taught.
You just keep the self-perpetuating system. It just keeps itself going, and look, I want to say, like, I don't want people to just like hear some of the things we're talking about, like, oh, these guys are just a couple conspiracy theorists, slightly, right? A little, slightly, right? Definitely lean that way. But the reality is that I think you have to look at everything with a sly eye, right? And when you think about what breakfast is, and in this country, at least for the majority of what we see here and what's being promoted, it's heavy grains, it's pancakes and eggs, it's brunch dinners, it's boozy brunches and unlimited mimosas and things like that. And it's a massive money making machine for restaurants, food industry, wait staff, you name it, right? And so when you look at it all in, if there were a number that we could find, like how much does breakfast make for the world? It's, trillions of dollars, trillions and trillions of dollars, right? So anytime there's that type of money involved, there's going to be some lying, stealing, and cheating. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So will you say that with your clients and the people that you work with, when they master the fasting, it's one form of dieting, but for you, it's really the mastery of themselves, right?
Right.
If they master the fasting, stick to the training plans, and start to put some of these habits in place, what do you usually? Why does that have such a profound effect on other areas of their life? Like, why do you feel like that is why? Why start with the physical stuff first?
I think it's the easiest, right? And it's thoughts, words, and actions is how you create anything, right? And a lot of people can't master the thoughts or the inner dialogue. So with this, I almost go reverse it, and I go, let's start doing the action first, right? And I know they're going to see result. And if you look at food, most people have dieted and they've failed over and over. They've tried everything, and it hasn't worked, and they don't believe in themselves. Now all of a sudden, if they fast, and it's just so simple, and they start to do it, and they start saying, man, I can do this. This isn't that hard. And I get to eat relatively what I want to eat. I get to enjoy my food. And all of a sudden it leads to that self-belief, right? It gives them control over this one area of their life, right? And then that starts to bleed over to the other areas. And then the training, right? That's just another way. So food is a drug. We have to recognize that. And exercise is the greatest drug in the world. So you combine those things, you limit the food, right? So you're optimizing that.
Limit the bad drug,
that's it.
Give more to good drugs.
Yeah, and you just keep hitting that. It's two wheels of the same bike. You keep hitting it back and forth. You start feeling better. You raise your vibrational energy. Now you start having better thoughts. It's your confidence, energy, all this stuff starts to climb, right? And it just that's what I've seen, man.
That's awesome. And now, so now you talked about you don't count calories, but I know you don't eat like shit. It's not like you're going out and eating pizzas and cheesesteaks and stuff like that. So, so let's talk about, like, if we were talking to somebody about specifically how to fast, is there a calorie range that you want them in? Obviously, the types of foods that they eat, better quality things and like that. What's your recommendations with stuff like that?
Sure. So I get that question a lot. Should I still track my macros and calories? And I say no, right? So with mind mapping, I always say, is the approach you're taking making things simpler or more complex? Making it more complex, it's not the right road. So with the fasting, what I teach is the way I teach to eat. I'm not talking about a cheat meal. I'm talking about when you're at home and you got control of your environment, you start with a big bowl of fruit. I like to start with fruit first, right? I don't care what kind or how much. So you do that. Okay, now you're going to have your main feast, anything that came from the earth. I don't care how much. That could be grass-fed burgers, a couple potatoes, broccoli. And then I do like soaked oats, dirt. And if you eat like that, and I have a huge appetite, you can't overeat. You can't do it in that sitting. I don't care, because I haven't met anybody that's had a bigger appetite than me. I'm sure there are, but I have a huge appetite. So you do that, and your body, especially in this finite window, it takes what it needs out of that and it excretes the rest. So your digestion should improve. Should start getting regular with your bowel movements if people are struggling with that, right? So you have all this stuff happen, and with metabolic rate, a lot of people don't know too, that can go up or down 40%. Most people have experienced it by coming down because they cut calories in their diet, right? Well, the best way to boost your metabolic rate to handle more food is to eat more. So feast, you keep trying to push that up. Keep trying to eat. Let's see if you can eat 40% over your BMR. Most people do that in one sitting, but it's and it gives people, it's liberating. Like I enjoy every meal I eat now, Joe, is the best meal ever. I'm so grateful for it. And I really feel like that. Where
Yeah.
before it was like, it's time to eat again, time to eat
I,
again.
I, I, I can definitely understand that because, and I'll tell a little bit about my story with, I'm like panda intro, I'm intro panda, right? I'm on the
You're
intro
right.
panda plan, right? But I definitely feel like when I'm doing the one meal a day or after I've done, a 24 or a 48, and the longest one I've done so far was the 72. And man, anything that I put in my mouth would have been the absolute best thing that I've ever eaten in my life at that point in time. And I was
Yeah.
so thankful to eat. And like I saved it for like dinner with my family and we broke fast together. And like, we had a great meal and it was like, oh goodness, and I did get, I don't want to say it gets emotional, but like you sat there, it's like it was over. There is some emotion behind accomplishing a hard task
Yeah.
too, whether it's like you said, climbing Mount Washington or like, doing a hard, challenge with yourself, or even, just completing a hard workout. There's like some emotion with that. And I think that starts to have some type of long-term profound effect on people's ability to do that repeatedly.
Oh yeah.
What now, when people are fasting, one of the biggest things that at least that I see with people with on our gym side with intermittent fasting or just any type of fasting, that they're generally they don't do it, they're not going long enough, or um they do tend to eat like garbage food, and that's really the biggest thing. Like they use it as an excuse to eat like crap, or as a weapon in a sense to like negate some of their bad lifestyle habits. Is that something you see? Or yeah, obviously with your clients you try to work them away from those things, like if you go out boozing all weekend, that's not when you're supposed to, then you don't come Monday and Tuesday and fast. That doesn't negate the 3 days
Yeah.
of boozing.
Yeah. So what I tell people is, um, as far as the length of fasting, most people are doing, like we said, like a 16 or 8. It's not going to move the needle. Then it's not going to lead to the confidence boost we're looking for, right? And I say, oh, this doesn't work. Now it's better than eating multiple times all day, but it's not. I did it for years. It doesn't move the needle. And I've had clients. So when my clients, we jump right into the 48s, right, to start building that confidence and seeing results right away. And then as far as what to eat, so with the mind mapping, I focus on the one thing at a time, right? So if I have a couple guys that are 500 pounds I'm working with, right? So the first thing I said, let's get your fasting period down first. Here's the structure I would like you to eat within, like what I just mentioned to you. But it's okay if you want to go have your pizza, just
I
get
don't
your
care what you eat. Yeah, I don't care what you eat.
get the period, and all of a sudden, over you start feeling better, right? And with fasting, the weird thing is, you will start to crave that stuff less and less.
Hmm.
Right? Like Sundays used to be when I was bodybuilding and really doing traditional North American diet. It was cheat day, and I would go crazy all day.
Yeah.
Sundays, it's a Sunday night cheat meal, and I look forward to it, but it's nothing. It's not like I don't live for for that moment.
Yeah.
So over time it course corrects, and all of a sudden you start craving those fruits. You start craving this stuff, right? And it just kind of it goes. And I think the system of the eating too, the fruit first serves a couple purposes, but I think
Mhm.
that really starts doing something to the body and the mind, right?
I like that. You talk about that because I followed that pattern when I broke my fast. I did the 72 a couple weeks ago, and I had the cucumbers with salt, and then I
Yeah,
had a bunch of fruit, and then I had my protein. What is there some of the reasoning behind that?
fruit first. So it's loaded. I focus instead of macros like on micronutrients. So fruit's
Yeah,
got tons of micronutrients.
sure.
Want to get that into the body. Now it's digested further down in the intestine than pretty much any other food source. So most people eat fruit after the meal. That's okay if you have a little bit after the meal, but what happens if we eat it after the meal, that fruit is going to ferment, right? It's kind of blocked up from going through the digestive system with the other food. So I like to eat it first, get it through the stomach. And also when it passes through the stomach on its way to digestion, your stomach has stretch receptors. So it starts expanding, and fruit has a lot of volume. So all of a sudden, your brain and your body is getting, I feel nourished. But sometimes after that big bowl of fruit, people could be, hey, I'm not even, I don't want to eat anymore. That's fine then. Right. So I like doing that first. I think it really sets it up nice for that feast. And then you start doing that, right? Fruit first, it's less likely that you're going to have an ice cream cone every night after
Yeah,
dinner. It's not congruent, right?
sure, sure. I think that, yeah, I mean, it's funny because We eat a lot of fruit. My son loves fruit. We jokingly call him the fruit bat because he doesn't really like his vegetables too much, but he loves all fruits. So I give him tons of those. And like, I guess like in I don't know, maybe like old school, mentality was like, you got to eat your meat and potatoes first, and then like fruit, like you said, is like a dessert or a snack. But we always have fruit with our meals, and that's kind of something that my mom was just like. My mom always put fruit on the table for
Oh,
as like first when we were kids, because when I same thing, I was a little bit picky when I was a kid. So she's like, I knew when you were hungry that you would eat what I put out no matter what it was because you were just starving. So I would always put like some carrots, some celery, some cucumbers, and some fruit out as like a little platter for you and your friends while I was making your sandwiches or while I was making your dinner or whatever, because I knew you would eat that stuff. So for me, it was always like, just there. So like yesterday, we went to the farmer's market after our hike, and we bought a bunch of fresh fruits and stuff like that. And we were snacking on that stuff with dinner. And you're right, like I had eaten so many strawberries that I was like, I don't even need, I'm not. I don't need this, like, I don't need ice cream. I don't need any snacks,
yeah,
and I definitely didn't overeat because I had pre-filled my stomach and digestive system with some of those healthier options, obviously.
yeah, yeah. It's a nice little trick, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I mean, so you don't count calories at all, you just eat to your full.
Yeah.
Okay. and
Okay.
and do you have an idea of like calories that you're trying to
Yeah. So with me, because I tracked it again that whole first summer, right? And I would do like when I did with Indigo Panda, I tracked it just out of just having data. But for me personally, it's anywhere between 30 on a regular feast, 3,500 and 5,000 calories. I'll take that.
Damn, that's a lot.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can eat, man. And
Yeah, yeah.
whereas before, when I was doing your 16 or hour fast or your typical North American diet, it to get lean as I am now, I would have to literally eat 1,800 or less
Yep.
calories a day. And it was miserable, right? Now then I would really look forward to just that cheat day, right? Because I needed it. But so now it's like the
Right.
whole,
A lot of people build in like a refuel day where they high calorie day.
yeah, you have to when you're cutting calories that low.
Yep.
And I feel for a long time that my metabolic rate was like from bodybuilding was just damaged because that's what I did. I would cut calories so hard. And I feel like the fasting has fixed it, right?
Mm.
And it's just so liberating, not for me, not having to weigh my food or measure my food. I have an idea, yeah, but I eat until, hey, I'm full. I got no more room in my stomach.
And I find like when I'm doing the one meal a day, like I'm probably right about at that like 3,000, 3,500, and that's like
Yeah.
about the limit of what I can eat anyway in one sitting in that 2 hour window. So if I eat from 5 to 7 or 6 to 8, whenever I start breaking the fast, and then I usually have about a like a 2 hour window where I'm going to try and get all my food in. I usually try not never to eat past 8 p.m. just because so I go to bed relatively early, so if I that if I try to give myself the 3 hour window before last meal and sleep so I can empty it out a little bit.
Sure.
And so you get that 2 hour window in. If you eat 3,500 calories in 2 hours, you just ate a shit ton of food.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of food. And my wife's like, yelling at me sometimes, like, "Oh, you're eating too much." I'm like, "No, I didn't eat all day." At first, because it was like, do you need to eat that much in one sitting? I was like, well, I didn't eat all day, so I'm basically, in a sense, like making up for some of those calories.
Yeah.
And but I've been psycho the last month though. I measured out my meals and I've been making them all exactly the same. So I've eaten the same meal every single night for the last like 27 days or so.
Nice.
And so I made up like, sweet potatoes, vegetables, some type of meat, and like, I might mix in an egg or two in there. I might have some like fruit and stuff like that, but it's X amount of cups of fruit, X amount of cups of carbs, X amount of protein. So I'm still
Yeah.
like using some of my meathead ideologies to
Sure.
all right, I still need 1 gram of protein per pound minimum, and that type of stuff to get to an end goal of about 3,000 or so calories.
Sure. And I did that the whole first summer. I tracked everything through MyFitnessPal,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt comfortable enough to kind of back away from that once I had a real good grasp of okay, because I kept pushing that number up, right? When I was tracking my calories, because it was a new experiment for me. I
Mm-hmm.
kept pushing it up, say, okay, you're staying in the same range, boom, boom, and I kept pushing it up, and but I think it is good to develop the discipline with that, especially for people that I learned a ton with bodybuilding as far as tracking my food, weighing my food. the old nutrition almanac before any of the stuff.
Yep.
I would pick everything up and do it all by paper. So I think it's a good discipline. But over time, what you'll see is that you'll know, okay, I got a good feel for this. I could add a little bit here, or you're just going to say, you know what, I'm tracking everything. I'm eating to my max. I can't overeat, so I don't need to track anymore. And you'll have an
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Know what you
Sure,
need.
sure. Yeah, I always recommend to my clients that they do, they pick a season, a quarter of the year where they're going to measure and weigh all their foods. It's
Like that.
not for them to get psycho with their nutrition. It's so that they can actually start reading labels and just gain a massive knowledge. Like if you never weigh or measure anything, most people either grossly underweigh or overweigh from an eyeball perspective. And it forces them to start looking at labels of the common foods that they eat all the time to really understand what's in them. And what I get a lot is, man, I didn't realize how much like processed shit was in my foods and things like that. You're looking at canned foods and things, and like, wow, I stopped eating a lot of the canned food, bagged food, frozen foods, things like that, because it wasn't just peas, it's peas and sodium nitrate, it's peas and silicon dioxide or whatever. It's dried fruit and silicon dioxide. So and now that I'm looking at all these labels, I've realized that a lot of the stuff I had has a lot of extra chemicals and shit that I don't need in it. And that's like, oh,
Right.
all right, well, so it has some ancillary benefits to it too, you
Definitely.
know. I think anybody who's on a fitness journey at some point should take the time to really get to know their foods in there and
Yeah.
what's in them, get some good ideas of calorie counting,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
all the micronutrients and stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah.
What up? What's your best suggestion for training though, Kyle? And I guess the further down the road you get with the fasting, the more acclimated to get to it, the harder you can get back to training. What would you recommend for somebody who's starting fasting versus somebody who's more seasoned in terms of like their training output and so forth?
Yeah. So with the starting, like when I put people through like my 6 week challenge, they'll always ask, "Can I train on this?" So I have them drink, the Celtic sea salt,
Mm-hmm.
and bacon. So I said, "Look, you can definitely train on this, but maybe the first workout you go a little easier, just because there's fear about, oh, am I going to get shaky and this and that and all this stuff." So by week 2, I usually see that people are exercising regularly. They see that they can do it, and what I see over time, especially with people that are more advanced, is performance actually improves. Right? And I've seen this with myself, where it's like you don't need to eat surrounding the workout. Like you don't need to do that, and you have less obstruction within the blood and all that when you don't have food constantly in your system. So performance and recovery, I see, actually goes up. And I've had a lot of pretty high level athletes, doing the Panda and whatnot. I've had ultra endurance athletes do it. So I have some good data on it as far as what's possible. And again, I think it goes back to like the hunter gatherer. You had to be able to go out on an empty stomach and stay, and your brain will actually feel better, right? That's a survival mechanism with the endorphins to keep going till you find the food.
Mm-hmm.
And your muscular system is actually enhanced. If those two things went down when we were chasing food, like you said, 1,000, 10,000 years ago, we wouldn't be here. So those
Yeah.
two had to get enhanced when we were going without food. So I just tap into it.
Right, to a limit, obviously, but but people think, I think it's just societal, right? Like, you got to have 3 meals a day, breakfast, the most important meal of the day. We put such an emphasis on, breakfast is arguably the way that we do it here in America is arguably like the most healthy meal of the day. I mean, like again, there's nothing healthy about pancakes and waffles and, French toast and shit like that. I mean, that stuff just awful for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you start your day off with pancakes and syrup and whipped cream and shit, you're fucked for the rest of the day. That's pretty
Well,
much, yeah.
yeah.
Might be 2 days. Like I know me, I'm like, I feel I'm half asleep by noontime. And then the next day I still feel like a slug. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
can't get out of my own way. And that's kind of, but you get used to your new normal though, right? And that was kind of the point that I want to make. If you do this fasting and you stick it through and you get to the other side of the tunnel, it just becomes the new normal like anything else. So most people, it's totally normal, you know, to go out and drink 10 beers, have wings, eat like shit. That's normal. But when me and you tell people that, hey, I'm gonna go do a 50K race or I'm gonna fast for 5 days, they're like, you guys are fucking crazy. What's the matter with you? We're crazy for trying to do like hard shit in the realm
Yeah.
of health and pushing our physical, mental, boundaries. but if I call 10 of my friends and say, hey guys, Monday Night Football, you guys want to go, drink 10 beers and get some pizza, I'd have 20 responses. Yeah, man, let's
Oh,
do it.
yeah.
Anybody want to go hike for anyone want to go hike for 4 hours yesterday? Not one person responded. My
The way
buddy
it
Johnny,
is,
that's it. My ride or die, the only dude that likes doing hard shit with me.
man. Yeah, that's the way it is, man. It is societal. They
Yeah.
look, this is crazy, but it's like, who's the crazy one?
Uh, yeah, I mean, look, me and you are definitely not the type of people that run with the sheep. You know what I mean? I've never been the pack, type of mentality, and I've always been the person who, like, when everybody was running in one direction, I was like, there's got to be something fucking wrong with that. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know, like can't. Anytime so many people are like, you have to try this, it's like, all right, let me investigate here because I'm sure there's something that we're missing here. I never liked going like that. So
yeah.
what do you think is, like, where does this go, Kyle? Like, we're fatter than we've ever been. We're lazier than we've ever been. We got the largest generation right now. The millennial generation is one of the most unhealthy generation. We have a generation of people that are behind them, the generation Z, who could be the first generation that dies before their parents. They're saying, right? In another couple of years, by 2025, they're saying 50% of the population will be clinically obese, meaning having a BMI of 35, I believe that is, a BMI of 35 plus. How do we break this cycle? And how do we continue to, how long can this go on where we're just like everybody's just sick and fucking diabetic?
I think you might. I think it all ties together with all the chaos around the world. I think as people start to uh, realize that they don't want to be controlled to such a degree, right? Because if you are so out of shape and unhealthy like the masses are, you have to rely on other people. You don't have as much freedom. I think it starts in the
That's a
home.
great point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Every time my two boys, we got a daughter too. I know they're watching me. I'm like, okay, they're going to be beasts. That's what I can really control. They're going to be beasts, and then my daughter's probably going to marry a man like me, so she's going to seek out somebody that's in shape and that's stayed in shape, right? So it's like I look at that stuff, and I was like, it always starts in the home, and then obviously we have the gyms, right? So we walk the walk, right? I want my clients to see me in there with my buddies and how
Mhm.
hard pushing and training and living the lifestyle. And you could have an impact by trying to, depends what scale, right? Like with the social media stuff we were talking about. You hope that that could have a huge impact, but I think as long as the system is set up the way it is right now, I don't think much is going to change on a mass
Yeah.
scale. I don't.
Yeah, on a mass scale, I don't think so. I think there'll be pockets of people like us. I do see, obviously, I hate to make like a demographic separation here, but more affluent communities have more options,
Yeah,
right? And so if you have more money and you're more affluent, you have options. And some of those options might be joining a gym like ours, hiring a life coach like Kyle, getting a nutritionist, being able to just at the simplest level, just being able to afford better quality foods and things like that. And I think we've just made it so easy. We've made it so easy to be fat and lazy. I mean, Netflix has 6 million options. You could sit on your couch all day. Video games for kids now. Like when me and you were kids and you wanted a video game, you had to go out and get the video game. Remember, you used to go to like places and you would trade your old video games for
oh
new
yeah,
video games and stuff like
yeah.
that. Or way back in the day when me and you were kids, you had to go to an arcade. You had to go
Oh,
somewhere, and we ride our bikes
yeah,
10 miles to the arcade. So at least there was that, right?
yeah,
But now these kids could just get everything streaming right to their Xboxes and Sony PlayStations and stuff like that. They never leave the home, right? And they got the headsets on, they're playing their buddies. They don't even like remember getting together to play video games and shit, right? It wasn't even a thing.
yeah.
We just made it so easy. Food's everywhere. I don't know. We look at the fitness industry as a whole. It runs about 50 billion or so. That doesn't even like scratch the surface of pharmaceutical, medical, big agriculture and farming. That's like they're in the trillions. So that 50 billion is like, me giving you literally a $50 bill. It's like, here, yeah, whatever, we'll just pay them off and, slap
Yeah.
them to the side. You know what I mean? So I think there's always going to be an issue with that because there's so much money involved. So for the people out there, how do we then, again, I guess it's just focus on what you can control, help as many people as you can, look for the people that want to be helped, and start to create pockets of change in your community. What do you recommend for most people to start? Like, if somebody wanted to start fasting or, getting their lifestyle, what would be the first thing you would get them going with? The fasting?
Yeah. So the fasting, because I have people that have gone through my program that don't exercise yet, right?
Okay.
So it's like, again, it's so simple that it's like we're going to take out the complexity and the mystery of dieting and all that. And you're going to go, I start people right out, like I said, on that 48-hour fast,
Okay.
right? People that have been stuck, and all of a sudden they start to see the scales start to move a little bit and they start to get excited, right? Then they start telling people that they're doing it. They tell their family sees it. Maybe the spouse starts doing it. So I think that's where I like to start
Right.
people.
The
It's so
wheel gets turning.
yeah.
But you mentioned a bunch of times the simplicity of it, and I can't speak more to that about, whether it's fasting or even in business, and I think we've made a lot of the same mistakes in business where, like, when you first open the gym, you have like a freaking menu of offerings, and you'll do anything because you're just trying to make a buck. So you got, classes, private training, semi-private training, nutrition coaching, you do anything to make a dollar. And then, over the years go by, you realize that less is more, and that, people, if you keep it simple, people are more likely to take action. And it really holds true. Nutrition and training are incredibly, over flooded with bad advice, good
Mhm.
advice, not so good advice, really terrible advice, complete quackery. It's like anything and everything. So most people are completely confused and have no idea where to begin. So if you just say, hey, just don't eat. Well, that's pretty simple. Just don't eat.
Yeah.
Now, do you worry at all? Is there some worry? Have you ever heard from people, like, are they worried about creating some type of like disordered eating with this? Like that is something that I've heard a few times.
I've had people that come to me that had eating disorders, and for them, I said, "Well, this might not be the best option for you unless you've overcome that. If you've really overcome it, then it's totally fine." So when people want to use it, like you said, as like a weapon or something, to do, then it's not appropriate for them because it takes a
Right.
level, emotional maturity to do this.
Right, right. That is true. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Is the emotional maturity. Well, I mean, on my end, and again, just, to give Kyle a little plug, and I haven't dove in nearly as deep, but, I've done anything and everything. I was kind of I when you were telling, like, I was 250 and bulky and I wasn't happy with the way I looked, and my wife said to you, your wife said to you, like, you know, all the hard work you put in, like, in a sense, like, you should look better than this. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot, babe. I appreciate
Yeah. Yeah.
that. But my wife, not afraid to tell me the truth either, says, man, for the amount of training you've done, the mountains you hike, the swimming you do, and everything, like, why? How come you, like? Maybe it's just genetics. She would always, like, maybe it's just genetics. You were just made to have, like, you're made to be beefy and have a gut. And I was like, man, I can't accept that. That's a bunch of bullshit. And I remember talking to you at one of the barbecues about the fasting. I was like, let me call Kyle and see. This is the only thing that I haven't done. And when I assessed my training like 2 years ago, there were two things that I never did. I never committed myself to running, like, on a regular basis, and I never tried any type of long term or consistent fasting, whether it was intermittent fasting or any other long form. So I spoke to Kyle. I had already started the running journey, and I started running, rather consistently. Started off running like literally 100 yards, like down the end of my street, like a fat kid, like like out of breath, right? And then the same thing with the fasting. I started with 16 hours, went to 18, went to 20, went to 22, well, 20. Basically 20 is usually my sweet spot. I'll get that 20 hours in and do that. So I started doing the one meal a day. And at the first couple of weeks, I have to admit, it was pretty terrible. Like, and I think it was a lot of my self-limiting beliefs and just a lot of my old preconceptions about, I'm starving, I'm hungry, I got to eat. This can't be right. Like, how the fuck am I going to get Jack doing this? Like, this is impossible. And then after a couple of weeks, it really did kind of get easy. And now the benefits of it are multifaceted. Where, one, I don't really, now I can leave the house in the morning and I'm not worried about what am I bringing with me for food and all this type of stuff. Two, my food bill is probably half of what it was last month versus this month. And then I have started to see, again, the leaning out effect of, I'm not doing anything different, but I'm losing body fat, and I haven't lost an ounce of muscle. Like, I haven't lost an ounce of muscle or strength. So,
Yeah.
there's definitely something there.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I haven't had, and I'm getting my blood work done in a couple of weeks, so I can give a better report. When I can report back to you to see where my blood work's at. But the last, two times I've had my blood work done, last earlier in the spring, and then last year since I've worked with you a little bit, my stuff's been fantastic. Cholesterol's perfect. Lipids are perfect. Inflammatory factors were down,
Awesome.
tremendously. So I definitely think there's some, whether it's science, non-science, whatever you want to call it, we might not have the, peer-reviewed studies to review some of the stuff that you're talking about. I think the empirical data is there. And I do think that what I've seen in my years, 25 years of coaching humans in whatever capacity, is that if you start to create some wins, those wins lead to more wins. And the number one thing in all of fitness is getting that first win,
Yeah.
and getting them to see some type of change in their body, because then you can get them, look, we're doing it, where this is going to work, we can make it.
You're right on, man. You said it perfectly.
Let's talk a little bit about the business side, man, because this is the business of strength. So I think people got a good lesson in nutrition and training, and kind of what the Panda fasting program is. Tell me a little about the business of the Panda-Man, and what are some of the programs that you have for, men and women out there? How do people work with you?
Sure.
And is it all online? And you're going to do some in-person workshops and clinics and things like that? Give me an idea about the business breakdown.
So right now, the primary offering is the coaching, right? And I have people all over the world. I got people in Hawaii, Australia, all over the place, all over the globe, right? So there's a group coaching option where I customize everything as far as training and fasting. There's a group call every week, or there's a one-on-one option where I get really into the mind mapping stuff one-on-one. Obviously, help with your fitness and whatnot too. And then I've got the Panda Diet book. I've got other books on the website.
Mhm.
Free 5-day challenge coming up that people will be seeing on my Instagram. The
Oh,
Panda-Man
cool.
Show. That's gonna be pretty neat. First time we've done that, and it's a lesson I'm teaching live every night. Mindset, fasting, all this type of stuff, limiting beliefs. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for. And yeah, I'm excited, man, because there's a
Awesome.
whole
Is there
lot
going to
of,
be, do you see yourself doing like a couple retreats and things like
yeah,
that, doing like a
yeah,
panda retreat and stuff
oh
like
yeah,
that? Yeah, I'm
yeah.
looking
We're
for,
already
sign me
planning.
up, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, yeah, we're
I'm ready. I
planning.
think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
You're gonna
yeah,
do some, you're gonna, again, like training, nutrition, kind of
all that.
workshopping the whole stuff, mind map
Yeah,
and all that. That'd be
yeah.
awesome.
We're calling it fast to feast. It's going to be
Fast to
next.
feast
Yeah,
next summer. Oh, he's got
next
it.
time.
He's got it ready to go. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. That's fantastic. And now let's talk a little bit about the gyms now. Now we met your crew. You sent your crew up to one of our workshops. We got a chance to meet everybody. And we came down to your gym doing in-service. Tell everybody about, your fitness journey. How did fitness become the thing? The gym thing became the thing, and now the Panda-Man. How does all this tie in together? How did Kyle Newell become, the strength nutrition guru that you are right now?
it was all, back in high school, really through sports, but then I fell in love with it, and it was really to build confidence. It was to build confidence, and it's still the quest that I'm on, right? I always feel like, like I said, I'm just starting out. So whether it's a self-doubt, which drives me or whatever, but it drives me to study and to learn and apply and develop that direct knowledge. And then through, after college, decided,
Mm-hmm.
okay, open the gyms when I was a phys ed teacher, just to help more people. I'd always get questions about training and all that. And the gyms have kind of grown, and the Panda-Man is just an extension of Newell Strength, right? It's an individual brand, but it's the same philosophy.
Right.
It's the same mission statement to inspire people to transform their lives. And it's just on a broader level, really.
Yeah. And how has it been? Because sometimes, like, people create a personal brand and it's maybe a little bit different. And I loved what you said there. It's just an extension of New Well Strength. And like, I look at it like Coach Joe Strong is just an extension of Varsity House and the business of strength, right? I'm not trying to take any energy away from that. I'm not trying to, I'm not off in La La Land doing something completely different. I'm just trying to enhance what we're already doing here. Have you found that your community, of your gym community, has been really receptive to you doing
Oh,
this
yeah.
project?
Yeah, they like it. They get a kick out of it. You know, they like, seeing the subscribers go up and I was over there when he was filming that type of stuff. It's
Yeah.
to me, but it's people they get a kick out of it for
It
sure.
kind of gives you like a little bit of a celebrity status right in your own
Yeah.
gym, right? People start to see you with the film crew going around and out. Like again, like I'm joking, like I'm used to it because we do a lot of it here with the business of strength stuff. But like we rolled up to Kyle's gym and he's got a whole film crew out there, and they were all, they're a bunch of nice guys and they were
Oh
all
yeah.
really excited and they were really happy to be working with you. And you're like, oh man, Kyle's gonna blow up. But over the last, tell a little bit about the followers. I mean, you've gone from a few thousand to like close to 100,000
Yeah.
in a couple months.
Couple months, yeah.
All
Instagram,
organic too. Like, and I'll attest to it. Like, I know Kyle's not paying for bullshit leads and stuff like that.
no paying, no ad, no even paid ads yet for anything. So Instagram's at 88,000. Facebook's now 102,000.
Wow.
I think TikTok is like 160,000. So it's kind of, it's just figuring out, the different avenues of how
Hmm.
I'm still learning, right? I'm learning how to really create a business out of this. It's going well, but I'm learning. I have coaches that coach me, and it's a learning process for sure.
And in the end of all this, right? Like you said, you have that 1 million man mission. You want to put this together, want to serve 1 million people. What happens then?
At that point, I think my mission will be complete. I think I'll be able to have enough people in that, like I said, that militia out there that are spreading that philosophy and that want to be stronger versions of themselves, right? And I envision at that point speaking, doing speaking. I love speaking in front of
Hmm.
people, writing more books. The same thing I'm doing really, but it'll be like, okay, I did it. What I said.
Yeah. Is it, and do you find like I find for myself, I don't know, like I don't know. I mean, and we've talked about this a little bit. I feel like coaching for me and helping other people is a validation for myself in some respect, in some way, shape, or form. And not to make my not to make my not to pump my chest about anything, but to make it's how I validate my existence in the world, right? Like by helping people, right? And I think it's a purpose. It's why I was put here, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that if you can impact more people, you look at some of the people who've created, I look at like a Tony Robbins who's transcended to like this, multi-billion-dollar brand, but he does some amazing, amazing things and he helps so many people get their shit together.
yeah.
And and made a lot of money along the way, and obviously turned it
Sure.
into a real business. But you should, right? If you're solving problems for people and you're helping people, you have a value in the world, and it definitely it's definitely worth some dollars, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's awesome, man. And so now, what do we got coming up? So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Kyle, what's the best way to connect with the Panda-Man?
Yeah, so they can Instagram at the Panda-Man official. Just shoot me a DM on there. I respond to all of them. I reach out to people every day on there. So that's the most direct way that I'll see. And just let me know what you're looking to work on or what I can help you with, and I'm happy to chat.
Awesome. Kyle, this has been super inspirational and educational as always. And I appreciate you taking the time to come here. It's Kyle Newell. Newell Strength is the gym, and the Panda Man Official is the personal brand and IG. DM Kyle. You will not be disappointed. This man is full of knowledge. He's willing to help, and he's got a wealth of information and knowledge that I think could help a lot of people out there. So thanks, my man. I appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you, Joe. It was fun, buddy.
Thanks, bud.